Travel and away games can be one of the toughest situations and environments to plan around from a nutrition perspective. And especially if you're in a situation where you've got a tournament coming up on the weekend, not only are you juggling the nuances that are travel in and of itself, but now you've got multiple games that you need to be primed and ready to go for. And so this is why we wanted to kind of dive into it a little bit to ensure that the Saturday's game, where you're feeling nice and fresh and good to go, carries over to Sunday's game as well, as opposed to coming in on Sunday, legs still feeling heavy and coming out sluggish and not playing at the level that you know you can and should. So we're going to dive into all those types of things to be mindful of to make sure that you're setting yourself up, controlling what you can control, and have success not only on Saturday, but Sunday as well. And so it all starts with the preparation piece. And when we think about the travel and everything around the corner, we have that packing list. And we always make sure that we've got our jersey, we've got our cleats, we got our shin guards, we got everything that we need there from an equipment perspective. But a lot of times it's the fueling piece and that nutrition component that gets left off of the packing list. And that leaves us kind of scrambling last minute. And that's the exact opposite of what we want to do. With your nutrition being the key component to be able to ensure that you're going into those games well fueled with the energy that you need to do what you know you're setting out to do, we don't want to leave that to chance. We don't want to leave that to a last minute grab something as we're headed out the door. Because again, we're going to be gone for multiple days. We want to ensure that we're prepared for every single situation and for all of the days that we are leaving. So just like our equipment is listed and lined up and organized, ready to go, we too want our nutrition to be set up and organized. Because what happens is when we do travel, it absolutely can impact your performance. And I'm not only talking about when we travel many time zones, I mean just even same day in a car, in a bus travel where you're sitting for an extended period of time. This absolutely can impact your performance, and it can impact your performance up to 3 days thereafter if we're not being intentional and being proactive to be able to help combat that. This is something that's been studied many times in the research world because it is so relevant, so impactful for every sport in every country. And when this isn't being addressed appropriately, what gets noticed is that the individuals and the teams that aren't taking care of the travel nutrition and the travel preparation, their sprint speeds are down. Their repeat sprintability is down. They have that increased soreness with the heavy legs and they're coming out more sluggish. These are all things that we can help decrease the impacts on, but it starts with making sure that we're being intentional and mindful about it to be able to have everything on hand that we need to be able to avoid these types of situations and these negatives from piling up on us. And so one thing I wanted to touch on though is when it comes to the travel piece, and especially coming back to that tournament setup again, we've got a game Saturday, we got a game Sunday. A lot of times on Saturday, we do look good, even though we just traveled on Friday the night before. Saturday we can look good. Then why is Sunday typically the one where we're feeling and looking a little bit more rough? A big reason for that is because on Saturday, you do still have quite a bit of adrenaline kind of running through the body, running through the system. You have that excitement of you're starting the new tournament. You may not have slept great the night before, but because you're so excited, the body's able to offset that a little bit. So on Saturday, you're able to get through, still go out, perform, do your thing. Sunday, this is typically when it catches up on us because not only is that just off routine and issues from the travel compounding and piling up leading to Sunday, now that adrenaline has also weared off. Now everything really starts to sink in and we really begin to notice the heavy legs, the feeling of fatigue, the tiredness, the grogginess aspect of things. And that delayed effect is real because even performance aside, games aside, if you've ever gone on vacation and you kind of come back, that grogginess a lot of times isn't necessarily going to hit you the very next day. It's the one after that. And so same situation here. We want to be mindful and be proactive to be able to help set the body up to combat what's about to occur or potentially going to occur on Sunday. We need to be addressing these things before all the symptoms really become apparent. And so this is where you actually have more control over a lot of these symptoms than what you may think. It's not a matter of, well, I'm traveling. I know I just got to bite the bullet. Here we go. Well, yes, traveling does take a toll, but there are things that you can do to help overcome that, to be able to keep the body in a good spot. And what occurs and what we need to try and do is to protect your routine. So, all those things that you would typically do at home to help set you up and prepare you for a good game, you need to preserve and do on the road. So, if you have a stretching routine that you like to do the night before, the day of, leading into the game, we need to preserve that. If you have a specific type of food that you really enjoy and that sits really well for you, we need to preserve that and find a way to be able to make sure that you have that on hand. If you have whatever it may be, just the timing of a meditation, if you like to read at a certain time to be able to just relax the body leading up into a game, we want to protect that routine as much as possible. So this comes back to understanding what is the schedule going to be like for the subsequent days? What is that travel schedule going to be like? And how can we preserve and protect all those fine little details that help get you into a good spot, both physically and mentally, going into that game? And one thing that is incredibly important with all the travel is making sure that we continue to just prioritize food. So especially for long travels, if we're crossing multiple time zones and things like that, there are a lot of supplements that start to pop up. And some of them do have justification and can be beneficial. We don't want to become dependent upon that. Because this is such a nuanced and complicated area, there's a lot of supplement companies that are just trying to market off of that, to where it is a challenge and they're trying to say, hey, take our product and it's going to be that magic pill and you're going to feel great. Not quite the case. What we want to make sure that we're preserving, though, is ensuring that we're still eating appropriately. We are still getting the good quality food. We are still getting all the nutrients that the body needs. And this is important to ensure that we are preserving that. So even though we may not have the convenience and just the comfort of being in our own home, in our own kitchen, we want to make sure that we're providing as much familiar and comfortable food as possible. This comes back to that preparation piece. We want to be able to research and prepare and understand what restaurants might be available. Are there grocery stores available to where we're going? If there's a gas station, what are the types of things to be looking for? Because even if we do become dependent on a gas station for a particular situation, we absolutely can still have good quality nutrients that we are consuming at the appropriate time to give our body what it needs. Is this potentially optimal? Not necessarily. I can't say most people are going to really prefer to go and get their food from a gas station, but if we need to, we absolutely can. But it takes that understanding and that preparation piece to be able to think through, when am I going to be in that situation where I'm dependent upon a gas station? And if so, what do I need to be looking for? So that way, when we get there, we're not just scrambling and trying to grab whatever it is that we see, crossing our fingers and hoping that it's going to be enough. So the first part of the preparation piece is that night before, that travel, that arrival period. We want to understand, what is dinner going to be? Because if we got a weekend tournament, 9 times out of 10, we're going to be traveling on Friday to be able to get there. So when we arrive at our destination, Friday night, here we go. That first meal. One of the staples that we want to ensure that is within that meal are familiar carbohydrates. Your body is going to be utilizing these carbs as its main source of energy during the games. When we start hitting that high intensity and that all-out max effort type activity, the body's going to be tapping into those carbohydrate sources, and we want to ensure that we've got plenty on hand. So not only do we want to be consuming carbs, we want to make sure that it's familiar carbs. So when we're going out to eat, there may be different types of sauces, there may be different preparation styles, but we want it to be familiar. Pasta, rice, bread, potatoes, those are going to be the staples. We want to ensure that the preparation of them is also going to be a little bit low in fat. We don't want too much fat in this moment because it's just going to take a little bit longer for the stomach to digest. And if we have an early game in particular there on Saturday, we want to make sure that whatever it is we're consuming isn't still going to be sitting in our stomach as we take the field there on Saturday. So prioritize non-fried foods, definitely, but focus on those familiar, high carbohydrate, easy to digest, quick in and out of the stomach type products at that meal. Then when it comes to the protein that we have on the plate, we want to try to keep it lean. And again, simple, clean, nothing crazy, nothing elaborate, no fried foods on this one. And when it comes to the lean, generally chicken and fish are going to be two of your best bet options for this. That being said, eggs can kind of fall into that category as well. While they are a little bit higher in fat, they fall into the category of familiarity. The vast majority of us are incredibly familiar with eggs. And so with that, we know how the body is going to respond. It's likely going to sit well, and so that is okay. If we want to have breakfast for dinner, never a bad decision on that one. So that can be perfectly fine. But what we want to be mindful of is any potential sauces. If it's a cream-based sauce, if it's a butter type sauce, we want to try to steer clear of it for this situation. Coming back to that high fat content, knowing we've got a game tomorrow. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is making sure no new foods in this moment, because the stomach is going to be a little bit more sensitive due to all of the travel. And we want to ensure that we're not throwing an additional wrench into the equation, that we're not surprising it with any new foods. We want to keep it familiar, we want to keep it simple, and we want to keep it something that we know is going to optimally fuel and prepare us for the next day. Then in the morning, when it comes to the breakfast piece, not all hotels are going to be equal. So don't just assume that the hotel is going to have this nice, elaborate buffet where you'll have some oatmeal, some bread, an omelet station, fresh juice. Not always the case. While that would be great if it were, not all of them do. So you want to make sure, if you know where you're going to be staying at, do a little research, do a quick Google and be like, okay, what is the typical breakfast setup that's going to be at this location? And is it conducive for what you are needing going into your game that day? If you've got an early morning game, that's going to be even more important because you're not going to have time necessarily to go somewhere else, pick something up, and then go to the game most likely. So you want to ensure that you are aware of what is the hotel providing, and if there's anything that's missing, that you're packing it and bringing it with you. Always control what you can control. So if there's any doubt, any slight hesitation, just pack some additional items to be able to fill that gap, to make sure that you've got something ready to go for breakfast as well. So do the research beforehand. If there's any uncertainty or any hesitation as to what may or may not be there, pack it and bring it with you. Worst case scenario, you take it back home with you or eat it at another time. Best case scenario, you've got the full buffet there in front of you, as well as the backup, just in case nothing necessarily sounds appealing. So it's not going to hurt anything, and it just falls into that category of controlling what you can control to make sure that you're still going into that game well-fueled, regardless of what the hotel throws at you. Now, if we end up in that gas station situation to where all of a sudden we're like, shoot, there's no other options, we have this gas station here, we need to make the most of it. This is still going to be able to fuel you appropriately. Gas stations have come a long way in the items that they're providing because as a whole, we are becoming more and more health conscious. And that's where, from a marketing perspective, the money's going. And where the money goes, so too do the products go. So we're getting better quality things. When we go into the gas station, we still want to prioritize the same types of concepts that we were at the meal. We want to make sure we got some carbs. We want to make sure we've got some good protein. And depending upon the weather, we want to ensure that we have the electrolytes in there as well. So hot, humid, increase that sodium piece. So some staples to really look for, and that are generally going to be at just about any gas station you go to, are bananas, pretzels, jerky, chocolate milk, trail mix. The bananas and pretzels are going to be great. Simple carbohydrate options. They're going to be easily packable to be able to take with you wherever you need to go. And the pretzels are going to have the little added bonus of having some sodium along with it to be able to help from that hydration perspective, replace any sodium being lost in the sweat, and you're good to go there. The jerky and the chocolate milk can be two great protein options to be able to have with you. The jerky is going to be able to stay in your bag. It doesn't need to be refrigerated and can be taken truly wherever, whether it be in the locker room, the sidelines, and good to go with you. The chocolate milk, it will need to be refrigerated just to make sure that we don't get any surprises. That being said, having the chocolate milk can be great. It's going to provide the carbs, it's going to provide protein, it's going to provide a little bit of the electrolyte piece to help with the fluid retention. And so really, we got 3 birds, 1 stone it can be a great option. And then last but not least, trail mix. This is something not necessarily to prioritize before a game, but if needing something to be able to have as a snack to keep the calories up, knowing you're expending a lot of energy, trail mix can be a great way to be able to do that. Now, when it comes to focusing on the bag, when we're packing this, going back to making sure that we're preparing in advance, one thing that we want to ensure that we are having readily available are carbohydrates, both going into the game and during the game itself. These are going to be things like granola bars, rice cakes, dried fruit, crackers, sports drinks. These are going to be the items that are going to be providing you the energy during the game, before the game, and if we've got that quick turnaround, to help replenish those glycogen stores, those carbohydrate stores in between games. We want these to be items that you are already familiar with, that you've been consuming, and that your gut is going to know how to respond to. Again, no new foods on game days. Then we want to make sure that we have some simple protein options. Some jerky can be great. Going to the gas station, hard-boiled eggs or something that can be there. I know as soon as you hear that, some people are like, no way. But if that doesn't deter you, it can be a solid option. Protein bars can be a great option as well to be able to just keep in the bag, to be able to make sure that after the training session, after the game, you have that readily available to be able to start that recovery process, that you're getting that protein in to maximize your recovery. Keep it simple, keep it reliable. Again, things that you've had before that you know will sit well. And then fluid and hydration needs to be a part of that plan, especially if it's hot and humid. You want to make sure that you overpack this. You can always bring those things back home. It's very difficult to all of a sudden make them magically appear if you need more during a game. So pack the water bottles, pack the electrolyte packets, pack the sports drinks, and make sure that you've got a clear plan and understanding of when you're going to be consuming those, where they need to be to make sure that you have them readily available, and that you have the proper quantity of it. It takes that little bit of thought in that preparation just to make sure that you're checking on the boxes, that you've got everything on hand and that it's ready to go for you. So just like you do that rundown with all the equipment, making sure you got the jersey, the cleats, everything you need there, your food, your nutrition needs to be written down, planned out in a similar manner. Now, when we are traveling, a big thing that we need to be mindful of is hygiene. Because when we travel, the stomach can really become a little bit sensitive. And at times, this is one of the biggest issues that sports teams and players run into when traveling. It's that GI distress and that gut issue. Because one of the most common things in travel when anyone gets sick really is just from the gut. That's the second most common type of illness. The first one is infection, but gut illness is very common. And a lot of times this stems from just, in general, hygiene. You're traveling a lot, you're touching things, whether it be on the bus, on a plane, handrails at the hotel, the buttons at the elevators. We're touching a lot of things. And if we then go from that to consuming food with our hands, we're exposing our body to potential germs. And that's going to increase the chances of some of that upset stomach. And anyone trying to perform with an upset stomach knows that's not going to feel the greatest. So if you want to perform your best, we want to keep the stomach feeling good. The best way to do that is just really making sure you are washing your hands. You're making sure that the food that you're consuming is stored appropriately. So if it's something that needs to be refrigerated, it's kept in the refrigerator. If we are traveling into any locations where we know that the water is a little bit questionable, bottled water becomes even more important to make sure that we have readily available, both for brushing our teeth, washing any of the foods that we may have, and just drinking in general. Don't rely on tap water, especially. Control what you can control, protect yourself, especially going to those areas where the water does have a little bit of a question mark. So again, big thing, this falls back into the no new foods, focus on the familiar foods, and make sure that you're keeping your hands clean to keep the overall risk of any stomach issues and GI distress from popping up on you. Now, some common questions with all of this are gas stations before a game, what do I grab? Big things are just reach for the simple staples of bananas, pretzels, chocolate milk, trail mix. Those types of things are going to check the boxes pretty much across the board for the different time points of what you're looking for, and they're going to be relatively abundantly available. Almost every gas station is going to have this. What you want to be mindful of is just making sure that you're avoiding any high fat or fiber right before the game. So that trail mix, those mixed nuts and things in there, that's going to be something you're going to want to consume away from the game, just because it'll take longer to digest. But the bananas and pretzels can be fantastic both before and during the game due to the carbohydrate content and that sodium content of the pretzels. Then, if kickoff times keep changing, when do we eat? That's a great question, and we need to be able to be a little bit flexible if that is the situation. So anytime that the game and the kickoff time changes, you just need to work backwards from it. You want to make sure that we're trying to get that pregame meal 3 to 4 hours beforehand, have a light top-up snack about 60 to 90 minutes out, and then making sure that we've got those regular game time snacks and beverages readily available for the sidelines. Now, if this time gets shifted to a morning game, where if we've got like a 9 a.m. kickoff, I'm not saying that we need to have a 5 a.m. breakfast. This just means that we now need to prioritize the dinner the night beforehand even more so, because that's really what's going to set the base and the foundation going into the next morning's match. Then when we do wake up in that morning, because it's going to be closer to the kickoff time, we need to make sure that that meal is more carbohydrate focused and likely going to be a little bit smaller, because we don't have as long of a runway, as much time for all that to be able to digest and get out of the stomach, to avoid any upset or uneasy feelings, because the body's trying to both digest and perform at a high level. So when the time changes, work backwards. When able, have that pregame meal 3 to 4 hours beforehand, have the top off 60 to 90 minutes, and regardless, make sure that we've got those carbohydrates available for during the game itself. And then the last question is, are electrolyte packets or supplements worth it for travel? Electrolytes are absolutely worth it for travel, and in particular, if you are flying anywhere. Because when you are at that altitude and just in the cabin with recycled air, it's going to dehydrate you. And if we're dehydrated, that's going to increase the chances of catching a little bit of sickness and illness. And also, that's the main contributor to that jet lag feeling. So the electrolytes are going to help the body be able to absorb and retain the fluid that you're consuming, which you absolutely want to make sure that you are continuing to drink plenty of fluid. Whether you're in a car, on a plane, on a bus, continue to drink and stay hydrated. A lot of times we can fall into the trap of, well, I don't want to pull off and have to go to the bathroom. I don't want to use the airplane bathroom because it's super small and cramped type of a thing. It's okay. Get over that. You're going to be more thankful that you're arriving hydrated than you're going to be disappointed that you had to stop and spend an extra 5 minutes going to a bathroom along the highway. Take your time, get the electrolytes in, get the hydration in, you're going to be okay. When it comes to overall supplement intake needed for the travel, melatonin tends to be the most popular one. That is going to be a very specific and nuanced time as to when to be taking it. Generally, if you're going from West Coast to East Coast and you are kind of losing hours of sleep, that's when it can be a little bit tougher, because now you're having to wake yourself a little bit earlier and you're not getting as much sleep, most likely, and struggling to fall asleep at the appropriate time that you would otherwise. So that's when melatonin can typically play a little bit of a role to help us fall asleep a little bit better. But in general, we don't want to become dependent upon that. We want to make sure that we're just keeping ourselves hydrated. We want to maintain that normal routine of whatever time zone we may be in. Try to adapt to that time as quickly and effectively as possible to get the body into a routine. But no supplements are necessarily requirements. The electrolyte packets, on the other hand, are something that I would absolutely say are going to be beneficial and worthwhile. So with all of that, here this week, if you got a big away game, away tournament coming up and things like that, start to plan for it. Let's put it on the calendar and begin to work backwards. We want to make sure that you are planning your fueling before you leave the house. What is that travel situation? Are you in a car? Are you in a plane? Are you in a bus? What's that look like? When are you arriving? Do you have time to get dinner there upon arrival? Do you need to take dinner with you? Are you going to stop somewhere for dinner? What is that? And then know the breakfast plan, know the lunch, the post-game plan. Figure out what that itinerary is. Because after all this, you've been doing the hard part. You've been going into training, you've been preparing for this tournament, you've done all of the hard things to get your body ready for this. Now we want to make sure that all that hard work is protected and that you're able to go and perform and do everything that you've set yourself up to be able to do. And we don't want all of a sudden a little upset stomach or just poor preparation to all of a sudden erase a lot of that hard time and hard effort. So if we're planning appropriately, we prepare in advance, you're going to be set up and ready to go for any location, any tournament that comes up for you.